Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Jam Bets NFL Week 3 coming at us. So, I am Tyke, joined as always by the marvelous Momma Mia. Today's video, we're going to be recapping two games we talked about last week, our Get Your Popcorn Ready games Bears and Detroit, and then the Super Bowl rematch Eagles versus Chiefs. So, Mamma Mia, you want to start us off? Tell us how you did last week, what you were looking at for Bears Detroit.
I'm shocked, but we don't have time to talk about it. Um, yeah, I expected Cairo Santos to save his job. He did make all three of his extra points. Big deal. I thought Jared Goff would be an overperformer. He completed 19 of 30 for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have one interception. He was sacked 4 times. He ran 5 times for 27 yards. Bears did not have an answer for him, so he had a wonderful day. I'm sure he was just pleased as he possibly could be. Then on the other side of that, I had underperformers. Oops. Let's see. I was concerned about the tight ends. Komet and Colston, they had 3 targets all day. Komet caught 2 of his for 29 yards. So I nailed the underperformer on the Bears. I did not nail the underperformer on Detroit. I said Jameson Williams, and he only caught 2 out of his 4 passes, but he had 108 yards, 1 touchdown. So he was probably very happy as well. It seemed like Detroit was just taking turns on who wants a touchdown now, right? Oh my gosh. And Tyke, you probably did a lot better than I did, so go ahead with your picks.
Yeah, I think Detroit was about to start taking fans out of the stadium crowd to start scoring touchdowns. Everyone was scoring touchdowns. I'm gonna try not to go on a Bears tangent here, but Santos first kick of the game out of bounds gives the Lions ball at 40. Loveland Colston, 10th overall pick. Why did we even draft the guy? We're not going to use him. He's barely on the field. He's not getting targets. I'm so upset with the Bears. But pretty decent looks for the game. I did say the game was going to go over. The Lions themselves beat the over. The over was 46 and a half. Didn't even need the Bears. I don't need them right now either. I also picked David Montgomery to have more than 50 rushing yards. David Montgomery went over that. I think he had 56 or 55. Then I also picked Swift to have less than 15 carries, under 14 and a half. Swift did end with like 13 or 12. Bears were down so much they weren't really running, although Swift was pretty effective when he was getting the ball. And then I also picked the Lions to cover the 4.5, which is what we saw it at, but it did end, I believe, around 6.5, which they still easily covered that as well. So we'll have to do a separate video, I think, on the Bears, or we'll never talk about anything else on the show today. So let's just move to the next game, Eagles Chiefs. So, Mama, what were you looking at?
Well, this was what I thought was going to be the get your popcorn ready game. I thought Mahomes would have a revenge game. He completed 16 of his 29 passes for 187 yards, so he was a little over 50%. He did have 1 passing touchdown. He had 1 interception. Thank you, Travis, for just, popping it into the other guy's hand. He was sacked twice, but he did run for 66 yards and 1 touchdown on 7 carries. That was really, really tough. But on the Eagles, I thought the overperformer would be Saquon. And he ran for 88 yards, and he did get his touchdown. I did predict that. He did that on 22 carries, and then he had 2 catches for 6 yards. So he had a fairly pedestrian but nice day. He didn't have to do too much. The underperformers, I thought it was going to be Kansas City's defense. Philadelphia's had the time of possession, a little over 32 minutes. So they pretty much, walked around doing what they wanted to. They didn't turn. Philadelphia had no turnovers, so it was a close game. It was 20-17. Um, so yeah, the defense didn't really do that well. And then I was picking on the little tight end there, Grant Calcaterra. Yeah, say that 3 times. Grant Calcaterra. Yes. He caught one of his 2 passes for 6 yards, but I did expect it to be more, more of a rushing game, time of possession, trying to eat up the clock, and that's exactly what Philadelphia pretty much did. How did you fare on this one, Tyke?
I did okay on this one. I did pick the Eagles to cover the 1.5 spread. They did do that. I also picked Pacheco as my underperformer. Um, I don't know how I'd grade that one. I'd probably put that as an even. Pacheco did have 10 carries. I was not expecting him to get 10 carries, but he only got 22 yards. So he only averaged 2.2 yards. Um, and then I picked A.J. Brown as my overperformer. Not even close to overperforming. Barely performing, I'd say. Um, so not too great on Eagles Chiefs. Okay, but let's move on to current week. Thursday night football. Dolphins versus the Bills. Coming in, the Bills are 11.5 point favorites. The total is 49.5. Divisional game, short week for both teams. A lot of storylines here between McDaniels. Curious to see what's going to happen. But Mama, what are you looking at?
A couple of overperformers. I think Miami has a sleeper in the wideout, and they're starting to try to use him. His name's Malik Washington. He's sort of a Debo Samuel type of wide receiver. They're using him in the 3 wideout sets, and they're also using him in the backfield. I think Miami's going to have to be throwing the ball on this one. Like you said, they're 11.5 point underdogs. So if I'm Buffalo, I'm just going to double cover Hill and say beat me with the other 2 guys. So I think we're going to see some activity from this Malik Washington. And then I do like the running backs at Buffalo. Dare I say this? Dare I say my overperformer is James Cook and Ray Davis. I think the 2 of them are just going to have a big night. I think it's going to be a big tilt, and they're just going to use Ray Davis. And, by the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, the starters are going to be sitting on the side waiting for the game to end. It's just going to be that big of a night. So those are my overperformers. Tyke, what have you got for your overperformers?
So couple things before I go into my overperformers, which I do have 2. I have one from each team. So Tua's career versus the Bills. Tua is 1-8 versus the Bills. He has 9 touchdowns total against the Bills and 10 interceptions. Now Josh Allen has played 15 games against the Dolphins. Josh Allen has 4,089 total yards and 45 touchdowns. So Josh Allen is averaging 3 touchdowns per game in his career against the Dolphins. And I don't know the math on that, but that's 4,000 yards in 15 games. That's better than any Bears quarterback has ever done in that span. So Josh Allen, as soon as the season starts, he's already got this game circled, apparently. This looks like this is his Christmas. Hopefully I'm not jinxing him. And then Achan's played the Bills 4 times. He's got 6 total touchdowns and 467 total yards. So he's averaging 1.5 touchdowns a game and over 100 yards total versus the Bills. So he seems to have the recipe there as well. Now for some injuries, just some quick call-outs. The Dolphins' depth chart is a mess. Waddle is questionable. Chop Robinson is questionable. And then the Dolphins' right tackle, Austin Jackson, is already listed as out. gonna butcher this gentleman's name. Ahufa Milatuanen, the strong safety for the Dolphins, is already listed as out.
Hufunga? Is it Hufunga?
Is that Mufunga? That is looking at how it's written down, I'm not getting Mufunga, but yes, it is. It is. And then probably my favorite name in the NFL right now, with honorable mention to already mentioned Chop Robinson, is Storm Duck. The Dolphins' starting cornerback also already listed as out. So the Dolphins have a pretty good amount of injuries. Their depth chart is just riddled with reds of questionables and outs. Bills are in a little bit better shape, although I will say the main standouts from the Bills side is Matt Milano, their linebacker, is out. And then Ed Oliver, their starting defensive tackle, is out. Shaq Thompson, defensive end, outside linebacker for the Bills, questionable. And then also Ed Oliver's backup, whose name I do not have, is also suspended. So a little bit of trouble there maybe for the run. Maybe that goes Achen's way. I don't know, but a lot of injuries here on the short week. It looks like teams are maybe just being a little conservative, taking their stars out. For my players, I'm going to be looking for. I've got two overperformers, one from each team, both a little bit off the beaten path here. So I'm going to start with the Dolphins. I'm taking Jordan Brooks, the will linebacker, to overperform. I don't think the Dolphins' defense will overperform, but he's slated and projected to have 8.5 total tackles and assists. So it's a short week. The Bills are a very heavy favorite. The Bills love to run the ball. If it's a close game, the Bills will run the ball. If it's a blowout, the Bills will run the ball. And then if the Bills are down big, even last week, I know Josh Allen had all those passing yards against the Ravens last week. But even when they were down, Cook still had 13 rush attempts, and Josh Allen had 14 rush attempts in a game where they had to come back from behind. So the Bills are going to run the ball, and I don't think there's going to be any shortage of tackle opportunities. So I'm taking Jordan Brooks, will linebacker for the Dolphins, as my first overperformer. And then my second overperformer, I'm taking Dalton Kincaid. He is projected at 29.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to overperform beyond that projection. He's over 30, I think it's 36 or 37 yards each game this year. And he's going against Miami, who's been a terrible defense against the tight end. Miami week 1 against Tyler Warren, they allowed him to get 76 yards in his first ever NFL game. And then last week, Miami allowed New England's Austin Hooper 38 yards on 3 catches. Miami this season is allowing 8.9 yards per target to tight ends and 11.9 yards per reception to tight ends. So Kincaid just needs 3 receptions at that metrics, and he would already have beaten this by a pretty large percentage. Well, about 8%, but still, that's only on three receptions, which I think he's going to get here. So that's who I'm looking at. What else are you?
I got a couple.
Go ahead.
I got a couple of. Just a couple of people that I think are going to underperform. I think in Miami, the tight end Tanner Connor is going to have a rough night. They're going to need him to stay in block for Tua. They want to protect Tua, and I think Tua is going to want to feed Hill, Waddle, A-Chain, and this Washington kid that I like. On the Buffalo side, it doesn't matter who's going to underperform, really. This team, I believe, will be running the ball, so I think it might be a quiet night for Shakir. Khalil Shakir, the wideout. ESPN is projecting him to have catch 4 of 6 of his targets for 50 yards, no touchdowns. And lately, Keenan Coleman has been getting a few more targets in the games than Shakir. So I think Shakir might be relegating to a number 2 and kind of in this game, there's not going to be a need to be throwing the ball down the field. So I don't think he's going to see very many catches. So I don't think he'll have 6 targets. He might have 4 catches. He has 4 catches. He could get 50 yards, but I don't see it happening. I just see him pounding and eating the clock. Like I said, they'll be sitting there starters at the third quarter. They'll be playing tiddlywinks on the sidelines. And at least they're not rude like the Packers. They won't laugh at the Dolphins, but they'll embarrass them enough anyway.
So you think the Bills are going to cover the 11.5?
I do, with all the injuries, and it's in Buffalo Mafia on a Thursday night. Oh, I feel so bad. I think that McDaniels might be getting his resume ready. I don't know, unless he shocks me again. He shocks me again.
It does seem like the data being at home, the spread, it just seems too obvious for it to
trap game.
It feels like a trap game. It does feel like a trap game. Thursday night, all America's going to be watching it. NFL loves to have good games on there. I'm not saying they have any control of it or they're fixing it, but I mean, there's been a lot of stinking bad Thursday night games in the past, but there's just so much overwhelming for the Bills. I don't know. I kind of want to take the Dolphins to cover.
Oh.
In fact,
at least it would be interesting then. It would be interesting then of a game. Because, like you said, a field goal and a touchdown behind, maybe they pull out some magic at the end and, shock us.
A backdoor cover. Yeah, a 2-possession win for the Bills still doesn't cover. If they've a touchdown and a field goal win, they're winning by 10. The spread's 11.5. If you take Miami, you still win. So it just seems very high for a divisional game, and it just looks so lopsided. I don't know. Maybe the Bills are sleeping on it. I don't know. But McDaniel's job is definitely on the line here.
Yeah. I feel bad for the whole team because they seem to have a lot going for them. They're very dysfunctional. It seems like they're just, I don't know. Like the inmates are running the asylum there, I think, like you ever have the little guy who was really smart and nerdy in your classroom and all the big football players were like, do my homework. It kind of feels like the players are doing that to McDaniel. So
any other closing?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say any other closing remarks for the game.
I hope it's closer. I do. I don't want to see the Bills players pulled. I really don't. I would hope that they, make a game of it, So, and shock us. That would be great.
That would be great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will be back with another video for the Sunday night game or the Sunday games. Thank you, everyone.
Care.